All right, everyone, we are live, and man, we got a lot of things to discuss. I got a great panel joining us tonight. I just want to introduce everybody to some people that might not know who they are, but they are great men and women of God. So, without further ado, we got Autry Phillips of Greater Destiny Bible Church, Elder Autry Phillips. Just want to put that out there. You know what I'm saying? We have youth pastor Deanna Warren from, let me make sure we get it right, New Bethel Fellowship Church. Thank you for joining on. We got Butter the Preacher from Tree of Life, youth pastor, right?
Yes, sir.
Right on, right on. Then we got artist Crystal Luster Boynes, and she's from, let's see. I got it written down. Hold on. Anthem Church. And then we got my little bro, Ahmad Ferguson, graduate 2020 from All Nations.
Congrats,
And I'm from All Nations as well. You will see, I think, let me see, get in there. That's my wife. My wife sitting right next to me, man. So Sierra Williams, All Nations as well. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Hold on, I'm gonna take Mike out real quick, and then I'm gonna bring Eric Boone in. We got Dr. Eric Boone in the building from Tree of Life.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming on with us too, man. So I'm very excited. All these people I respect highly. So I think we can really do some great things from this video going forward. So without further ado, the two main things I want to talk about is roles of the church and roles for us as individuals or as a people to go moving forward. So I'm gonna open the floor up, but I'm gonna open the floor up to Eric Boone because I know that you all are out in the community doing great work already. But I did talk with someone. He was supposed to be on here. He might be coming on later, but he lives in Michigan City, and he talked about how the church needs to do more. And I know that you all are out doing a lot, but some people feel that they so worried about being in the building, they not being effective outside of the building doing different things. What do you think the role of a church should do in this type of situation with this George Floyd and all the protests?
I can first attack that that in the building statement. We ain't been in the building in 11 weeks, 12 weeks, you know what I mean? COVID-19, you know what I mean? And the safety of others didn't allow us to be in. And even though we haven't been in the building, you know what I mean? It wasn't a big something to adapt to at the Tree of Life because most of our work is outside the building. We meet in the building twice a week. But we carry out the duties and we impact our community 7 days a week outside the church. I just got a list of a few things we've been doing. We have fed the hungry, we have filled refrigerators, we have paid bills, we have kept roof over heads, we have filled prescriptions, bought cancer medicine, you name it, asthma pumps, insulin for those who fight diabetes. We make sure that as many elders as possible wouldn't have to go outside to have their health jeopardized in this pandemic. So we've been grocery shopping for them. We've been filling their prescriptions for them. We've been providing masks. We even in the midst of students graduating, been preparing to give out scholarships. My job as a pastor is not just to pray for you. It's not just to preach to you, but it's also to provide for you. We have helped pay for funerals. We have given out $7,000 out of our own pocket, not only with our church, Tree of Life Baptist Church, but me and my brother, Butter the Preacher, what our organization called YBM, Young Blessed Mans, we've been making a difference in our community. And we just been asking the people, how can we help? We've been doing it virtually, just like we used to do things physically. And the things we did in the private state has now been publicized because a lot of things we got to do, we're doing it via social media, Facebook Live, etc. So we've been giving out cash apps every week. We give out at least probably no less than $1,000 out of our cash apps, helping people get through the struggle. People are hurting for real. People have lost their jobs. People have been laid off. People are struggling. They refrigerators are empty. They used to having their kids eating at school, but now they got to feed them twice as much because they now at home and no longer at school. So
Right.
they say the church can do more. We all can do more.
Right.
But a lot of churches is doing the best they can. Some churches are struggling. So we've been helping struggling churches.
Right.
We've been helping
Right.
pastors and churches who haven't been able to get income because a lot of people not paying tithes and offerings because people are unemployed. So we've
Right.
been trying to find people that we can help. You don't have to be a member of Tree of Life. Some people have never met me physically. Some people have never stepped in the building, but
Right.
that didn't stop us from still meeting their needs. And we just believe in being a blessing. If God bless us, to be a blessing as best as we can.
That's good, man. I'm glad. And like I said, I knew that you all were out doing a lot of things. I got my guy Tommy Billups in. We was discussing this yesterday, day before yesterday. Thanks for coming on, brother. I jumped off the show talking about the roles of the church. And I think we were really talking about, as far as protests go, we don't see a lot of leaders or preachers out there with the protest. Tommy, man, do you want to just talk about exactly what you wanted to talk about as far as the church role?
Yeah, y'all gotta forgive me. I'm actually just leaving a protest, and I was caught up in traffic. That's why I'm home late, and I'm in my car driving. So I'm probably gonna get off and hop back on once I get to my crib from my laptop. But one of the things that we were discussing was just how in past protests, back in the day when you would see the protests, a lot of the front line of those protests and those protesters, the leaders were leaders of the church. And now when you look at these protests, a lot of these protests that are organized or lack thereof have not been led, not by the church and really not by anybody. It's been pretty much kind of like a let's show up and we have no plan. Let's show up and, chant. And, a lot of times things happen that shouldn't happen. So we were just kind of discussing, like, how can the church be more effective in helping lead this movement to bring civility between communities and governments, community and police, and just help build a better community. By the way, Eric Boone, man, I follow you heavily, man, and the work that you do in the community, man, is beautiful. You're one of the first pastors I saw that was very innovative when the whole pandemic broke out with you having your outdoor service and everything like that. So my hat's off to you for what you're doing in the community. It's pastors like you that help build community, that makes communities better places. So my hat is off to you for the work that you're doing in the city that you're in. But we need more pastors and preachers like you.
That's right on, man. I'm gonna let him
focus on building.
Go ahead. I'm gonna let him address the part that we talked about as far as the protests, man. So boom, get in there one more time, man. Just talk about what do you think about what he said about the leaders being in the front for the protests?
Shout out to you, Tommy, man. I appreciate you, man, and your sacrifice and being on the front line to bring forth change. We have been actually planning to be strategic so we can protest with a purpose. A lot of people is out there, and they know what they're doing, but they don't know why they're doing what they're doing. And that's why you see this protesting has been going in the wrong direction, not with everybody, but with a lot of people. It's turned into not looting, but stealing and robbing, trying to see how can I come up, trying to see what can I grab. This man lost his life, and we trying to stand up for Brother Floyd. And it wasn't about seeing how many big screen TVs you can get, or, can we steal a ATM machine, or how much stuff can we take out of Target or Walmart? This is about bringing the ultimate change. And that's why I commend Tommy for doing that. And we are doing that. I'm actually is in the prayer rally that we're going to stand to try to bring change in our community. So what I wanted to do is make sure then whatever I'm involved in something that's guided by the power of God, that is standing on the principles of God, and not just as around something just for the sake of being around it. So I've been invited to a lot of things, and so I ask a lot of questions because I'm not in the rush to become a part of nothing that's not stand on the proper foundation. Let me tell you, I'm angry too. I'm upset too. What happened bothered me too. I'm a black man who's a victim of police brutality. I've been locked up for something I didn't do. I went to jail, had to spend money on lawyers for something that I didn't do. I know how I feel for my 11-year-old son to be handcuffed by a white racist police while he was coming out of Skate World. I know how I feel. Brother go talk about it, about his little brother, my baby cousin, to be shot 13 times by a white police officer because he was a 16-year-old black boy. I had to change his diaper. I have to carry you. I'm angry too, but I have to realize that I can't lose my mind and operate out of anger. Because if I lose it, I jeopardize the world losing me. And I don't want another black man, because listen, I'm more effective on the streets than the casket. I'm more effective on the streets in the neighborhood than in jail. So I don't operate out of anger, and I'm not going to operate out of nothing that's not planned, that's not strategic. But I need to connect with brothers like Tommy. I need to connect with brothers that's standing on a certain foundation, not just going out and let's tear this place down, not let's go out and just burn this place up, not just go out. Because listen, one of my best friends, he is a black businessman, an entrepreneur. Watch this. And his stores was destroyed by black people. He was a man that came out the ghetto like us, came out the hood like us. And it's amazing how he gave people an opportunity and hired people that other companies wouldn't give a chance. But this was the place that was torn down. This was the place that was destroyed. So I'm not going to jump and rush into a part of anything that will tear my people down. I'm going to make sure I'm a part of something that will build our people up.
Do you think that's the reason why pastors are not jumping, being in the forefront of the protest, is because they're not just going to jump out at anything? Or do you think that it's just some people that don't want to go out and be in front of the protest?
Well, I can't speak for everybody. You know what I mean? Everybody got their own visual reasons why. But man, we are on the front line. Like I don't know if you seen the other day, man, I have been on the phone with police today. Let me tell you what I've been doing. Because a lot of people think people don't do something because they don't see it in public. But a lot of things really is built in private, behind closed door. I've been on the phone with police officers, asking, man, what is their heart? What's their concern? I prayed for police officers on their way to different places because it's a large crowd that's trying to take over certain areas. What I've done is also called out to some community leaders, asking how can we strategically and properly and in a healthy manner, how can we stand to bring change where we are? So that's what I've been doing. Me and my brother Butter, man, we got a heart for our people, a heart for our community. So, man, we actually got some things we working on in the city that we're going to come together and we're going to use the people from the hood. We're going to use the people from our neighborhood where we grew up at and where we from to go and bring a change and bring joy and bring smiles and faces, and also to educate, because a lot of us are acting out of ignorance. Watch this. 2 days ago, a young man was protesting. He left the house but didn't make it home because he was killed. A lot of people are getting shot down and killed. People ran over by horses. People busting their head with bats. People are beating each other up, standing for change. Why? Because we're in the midst of something chaotic, but we didn't build it on something that brings peace. And that's why I want to make sure that what I stand on is something that is God orchestrated and God instigated, because I know that we can do it, but we got to do it with Jesus. The Bible says we can do all things, but it's through Christ. All I know is God.
Right.
You know what I mean? I failed on my own. I tried it by myself in the world. I tried to make things happen with my own intellect, but I ain't smart enough. I ain't strong enough. And you know what I mean? I ain't capable enough. But I know with God, we can achieve it. And with God, we can reach that desired goal. And man, I believe that when we come together with God and with each other and people like my brother Tommy, I believe that we can really get what we're chasing after.
Right on. I appreciate that, man. I'm going to get Crystal in real quick because I talked with her earlier, and I know this situation has really bothered you in a way. And I think you and my wife in the same kind of boat, man. Just talk about how it's affected you, and what do you think about what we talked about so far?
This has been a really heartbreaking ordeal on so many levels. My mom comes from Alabama, and I've always known the story she would tell me about, her days picking cotton in the fields, her days seeing literal signs of, for colors only and for whites only. She was around when the 4 little girls were killed in the church in Birmingham. She was around with where there were lynchings. She was around where the Ku Klux Klan was literally running around with sheets over their head. Like, this is something that is very close to home for me. And I've spent my entire life trying to hold on to this innocence on the inside of me that knows that not all people are inherently racist or hateful. And it has become increasingly difficult over the last couple of weeks to hold on to that part because we're constantly seeing it in the media. A couple weeks ago, I decided to kind of start this experiment called the Race Bridge, where I've conducted interviews that I'm going to start releasing this week with white people, men and women from different backgrounds who have been able to come in, and we've been having a dialogue about racism and race relations and what it looks like today, what it looked like back then, what we can do to really build a bridge and tear down the walls of racism and separation. And some of the common threads that I've seen, it has just really been that there are white people who want to be allies. And a lot of them, either they already have been having these conversations so they understand how to be an ally, or they haven't had any conversations and they don't know what to do. They don't know what to say, and they're afraid to say something. And so you're seeing a lot of people, Black people in particular, who are upset, who are angry on Facebook talking about, well, white people aren't saying anything. I saw this one guy who was singling out one white pastor in particular. He doesn't even go to his church, but he just started making all of these different rants about him. And I asked him, I'm like, why are you singling him out? He's like, oh, you're missing the point. You're missing the point. I'm like, no, you're missing the point. Because at the end of the day, like I believe what Dr. Boone said, we really have to stay focused on the task at hand. We are fighting against a spirit of racism, and we have to constantly and intentionally remind ourselves that racism is not a person. Racism is a system, and racism is a spirit that we must tear down through prayer, that we must be strategic about in how we handle. We have to be educated. We have to be unified. And I think I am impassioned in so many ways because as a Black woman, I have to think about my Black husband. I have to think about when he walks out of the door. I've been very clingy these last few days, and it's not like me. I'm a very independent woman. I'm very busy. I am goal oriented, but knowing that George Floyd left out and just with this idea, I'm gonna go to the store and come right back, and then he didn't. Knowing that that man was on the ground crying for his mother.
Right.
It's so heartbreaking to think about how many times that's happened, and how if it had not been for social media, if it had not been for that girl just standing there with her phone out, we wouldn't have known. And to know that it can happen to any Black face because the media constantly puts us in the news as criminal, and we have targets on our back. It's hard from that perspective. As a believer, as a Black woman, as a Black wife, as a Black mother, you have to think about all of these things because and it's blatant. It's right there. Like, I've been on several different social media chats just trying to figure out what's going on, just trying to test the climate, be mindful of the protests, be mindful of the rioting and the looting and all these things. And I mean, the comments, there's just so much blatant racism. And then on the other side of that, you have ignorant Black people who are angry and spiteful and not organized or focused, and they just decide they just want to do stuff. I just want to loot. I just want to steal. I just want to come up. And I'm like, that doesn't help the situation. It proves the narrative that they keep blasting about us on the media, which continually perpetuates this systematic racism. And so, in short, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm impassioned, but I'm still hopeful. I think what Dr. Boone was saying, it's really important for us to come together and really have a strategy that we can go and try to find a solution. And that's what I've been trying to do on my part with the Race Bridge, just talking to different people, and starting these conversations and breaking down some of these barriers between blacks and blacks, where we have division in within our own group, people who think like, you know, these radical ideas where all white people are racist. That's untrue, and we have to break down that thought process. And then also just trying to repair some of these relationships with white people that want to be allies, and just all of these different conversations that have to happen. I'm trying to have them, and I'm trying to stay focused. It's hard, and I am tired.
I got you, and you can see all the emotion. We can all see the emotion in your face.
I'm trying
I know
so hard to hold back to you.
Yeah, but don't. I'm gonna read a couple of comments because for whatever reason the comments not showing up, so I'm just gonna read them myself. Nikki Green says Martin Luther King was a pastor and he put in place structure. Felicia says I will say this: the protest at South Lake Mall was peaceful, and I truly believe it was because there was prayer surrounding the whole thing. If you continue to let this protest be led by people who are not of God, chaos is going to happen. So I want to go back to the Nikki Green comment. Martin Luther King was a pastor and he put in place structure. Let's see. Deanna, you was at the protest today. We seen some pastors or preachers out there, and you were so funny. Go ahead, just give me your thoughts and your thoughts about the atmosphere and the roles of the church.
So I was there today, and I will say this: the church made the difference. The church made the total difference at the protest today. I was praying before I got there that there wouldn't be any kind of chaos, commotion. Now it was a little chaotic to some extent, like in terms of there was not a lot of direction into what we were supposed to do. In all clarity, like that was my first protest attending, because I think it was, and so I wasn't really sure what to expect, to be honest with you. But when I got there, you could tell that, man, had it not been for men and women of God being present there, it really could have gone way left really, really quickly. The church literally made the difference in their presence, in the prayer that was continuing to happen. They prayed for a lot of different groupings of people: the men, all the black men, the black women, white men, white women, Hispanics. They prayed. I mean, they prayed a lot throughout the entire protest, and I think that set the tone.
Let me ask you a question, though.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let me ask you a question, because the guy who started it, I don't believe he contacted any preachers or anything like that. They just so happened to come. I mean, I'm glad that it happened, but like, what if it didn't happen? Or do you think preachers are they should automatically, if they see something, go out? Or what are your thoughts, like how that should go?
I think obviously with wisdom and prayer, that those who are leaders in the church should make themselves present. I do think that, because the presence makes the difference. I think what happens a lot of times is people get scared, they get nervous, they get a little antsy. You could tell there was a little bit of tension even there, because we weren't sure what was going to happen. There were snipers on the building, on the top of the Macy's building. And so it really, like I said, it could have gone way left. I think it is imperative, especially for the leaders, to make their presence known in environments like that, because they make the difference. Listen, if the redeemed of the Lord don't say so, we're gonna leave the unredeemed to speak for us.
Yeah. Yes.
So we allow the unredeemed version of justice to basically create the atmosphere and the environment for us. Now, what's crazy is we have such a clear definition of justice because of who we serve. So we should be the ones who are creating these opportunities. We should be the ones who are actually in the front lines. We should actually be the ones who are initiating these protests. We should be initiating any kind of form of justice that could be served, or any way that we could enact any kind of forward motion in justice being served. But I think a lot of times we get scared We get scared. We're not sure of the environment. And honestly, I think we don't want to be around those people. I think one of those things is we don't want to be around those people because it's uncomfortable.
Wow.
And because we don't want to associate ourselves with them. Right.
Wow.
And I get that. I get not wanting to associate ourselves with, the looters or the rioters. But listen, if we don't come, who will? If we don't set the tone, who's going to?
Let let Tommy get in, right. He put up his finger.
Go ahead.
No, you good, but I just want Tommy to go ahead and speak on what you said.
Yo, what she's saying, they don't want to be around those people. That point is so very important, because one of the things about situations like this, when injustice occurs, yes, we want, our leaders, our pastors and stuff to lead it out, but they also have to be comfortable with somebody coming alongside them that may not believe what they believe, but they have the same agenda. And I think we don't have, a lot of preachers or church in general don't know how to have that balance of, even though you're not a Christian, believe what I believe, we can agree on this one thing and walk it out. They don't know how to, because they view it as in they don't believe like us, so that we can't walk together, but we agree on this moment. We agree on this injustice, and we agree that something needs to happen. So we have to be comfortable with walking alongside people who don't believe what we believe in, but is fighting for this cause. Now, what this does is allow people who may not believe what we believe in, they'll look back at this moment and say, wait a second, this dude is a Christian and he didn't question my belief. He didn't question anything. I want to know something about what he believed in. Like this, those are moments of evangelism that can happen without you even saying a word. And I think a lot of times we miss those opportunities because we fear being around people who don't walk or think like us. And it's just like we have to get comfortable in that. Like I was at this protest now. There was literally people that literally atheists didn't believe, but they were unified with one mission. Like we want to speak out against this injustice. And who's to say that you as a Christian being in the presence of those people, carrying the God that you carry, can influence or even potentially be the light to draw them to, wait a second, like this guy didn't harass me. He didn't tell me I was wrong. He didn't say that I need to get right with Jesus. He walked alongside me in love and in peace. I want to know about his God. And it's like, we have to be able to do that.
Right. Let me get Butter the Preacher in, man. Can you hear us, bro?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Go ahead, bro, man. Just comment on anything you heard so far. I seen you move a couple times on a couple of statements, man. So go ahead.
I apologize. My service was breaking up. It was kind of chippy, and so I was getting bits and pieces of certain things. But can y'all see me and hear me good?
Yes.
Oh well, I want to speak upon the leadership of the church we were speaking about in different roles that we have as pastors. I know that for a fact is just being a leader, you want to make sure that you have people who can follow instructions. It's frustrating to try to lead a crowd of people who are divided themselves. And what you do is, the Bible say, be slow to anger, and you move in with emotions with people who not gonna see your vision, because it's a way. It's not what you're doing is just how you do it. First of all, we look at the self-inflicted wounds we put on ourselves by some of the damage that we do in our own city. And we fighting a battle that we've been fighting for a long time the same way and expect different results. That's insanity. And my hope is built on Christ. And we have to understand, as a church, we have to push that message of hope. Even when Jesus went through the worst of the worst, through his despairs, he still had the hope. He still had his faith. He still had his faith in his Father and his trust in him. And we dealing with a generation who have no hope, who has lost hope. And as leaders, as pastors, we must understand the anger that the world is going through, because I'm a black man and I'm going through the same thing. You know, after I take off on whatever somebody call me.
We breaking up a little bit. I'm gonna go to Autry, man. Autry, get in there real quick. I'm gonna see if we can get Butter the Preacher back going in a second. But Autry, just go ahead and comment on what you heard so far.
Man, brother, there's a lot, man. That's been talked about so far, man. We can really go so many different ways. But as far as the aspect of Dr. King, bro, like, man, like we're still, I guess we're still in pursuit of a dream that was given to us a really long time ago. You feel me? Like we're still in pursuit of this dream. And I believe it was what, like 50, 60 some years since Pastor King was assassinated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like since then, I believe Sister Crystal was, I forgot who said it, but it's like since then, it's as if we've been trying so many different areas to get what the dream was, right? But it's like he got the dream because of his awareness of God, right? He got the dream because of how connected he was to God. So it seems as if we're trying so many different avenues to get what we can only get through Christ. You see what I'm saying? So it's like we, we kneeling and that's good. Hands up, don't shoot. That's good. We marching. Right. That's good. But I mean, at some point we have to go back to the source of it. We got to go back to the source of the dream, right? To figure out, man, what is it, even if it's creatively, what is it that we need to do in order to get the dream fulfilled? And even looking back at that time, correct me if I'm wrong, but they would have like town hall meetings, right, at the church, right? I mean, what would our protest look like if we started at the church? You feel me? I mean, and the thing is, we have such great leaders in the church: Apostle Stevenson, Apostle Kelly Williams, Dr. Boone, Pastor Warren. Like, we have so many great leaders in our community. I mean, all we have to do, I mean, if you look at our leaders who have such great influence, I mean, if we kind of galvanize together and just have one great march and use the strength that God has given us, the power that God has given us through the Holy Spirit, if we got everybody together, went on Route 30 or whatever the case may be, I mean, how much different would things look?
Let me ask you this, because I think it was something going on with Tommy's statement and then with Butter the Preacher's statement that kind of we didn't get clarification. He had made the statement that you got to make sure people know how to take orders, when you're trying to do something effective. But Tommy was saying we got to be uncomfortable with people that's not aligned with us, so to speak, but we still going for a main goal. So what happens if it's a protest that wasn't planned and you got to kind of improvise? How do you walk through that?
You want me to take it? Well, here's the thing.
I'm gonna start with Autry, and then everybody else can. If somebody got an answer, go after Autry.
I'll be quick then. Like the thing is, bro, like what I think we have to understand is that we can have disagreements and still walk together. I mean, and so when it comes to these kind of impromptu things, I mean, I can't necessarily. I mean, it's cool, it's fine. Like, even as far as this is concerned, right? You yesterday you text me, you was like, "Hey, bro, can I do it?" And I was like, I mean, I needed a while to say yes, because I had to pray about it. I'm like, God, I don't want to get on here and say something that you don't want me to say, or I don't want to say something out of pocket. God, give me clarity to make sure that this is what you want me to do. I prayed on it and then I went. And I think a lot of times, just like Pastor, I'm sorry, bro, I'm going to call you Butter the Preacher so bad. Just like Pastor was saying, we can't be quick to anger, man. We can't be, I mean, and I understand these things make us angry, but we can't be so quick to do things that we don't look to the direction of the Holy Spirit.
Good. I want to get Ahmad in real quick because he's been waiting patient, man. This young brother, I feel like he got a lot of influence, so I was eager to get him on here just to hear his thoughts, and specifically, with his age, like, man, I feel like they have the energy to really push the movement really forward, and how he can use his influence, man. Just comment on what you heard so far and what you're thinking.
Congratulations on graduating.
Congratulations, brother.
Congratulations, man.
Appreciate
yes,
that.
Sir.
That. So basically piggybacking off what Ms. Warren said and Tommy, I kind of, when you asked me to do this yesterday, I was kind of like Autry. I was like, I don't want to say the wrong things and stuff like that. But I actually thought about something to say, so I wrote it down. And like basically what Ms. Warren and Tommy was saying, like the church, like we gotta have open arms. Like, you gotta have open arms and bridge the gap with God's word. Like you gotta bridge the gap with God's word, because right now a lot of people, especially my age, they're vulnerable, they're angry, you know, they want answers and all that stuff. There's a lot going on. It's violence, sickness, lack of resources. So it's a lot going on, and we gotta bridge that gap with God's word. And like we shouldn't be in fear, because God's not giving us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So you know, so and like the Warriors, strength in numbers. Like we gotta, you know, strength in numbers. We gotta be together. Matthew says, "For when two or three are gathered in my name, there I am with them." So God is with us, and God is the source. But we have to realize that God is the source. So
Come on now.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead, brother. Yeah. You got something to say?
Talk, man.
Question about so the youth, like Alfred was saying, they, like you said, they are angry, they need direction. Are you finding that it's easy or hard for you to talk to peers who you don't necessarily know, who you see that they are displaying those angry tendencies, unruly? How do you talk to them? How do you deal with them peer to peer?
It's very hard. Like what Pastor Butter, he was saying, like a lot of people, they act off like a lot of people, they do things off anger, and like when they come from that cloud, down from that cloud, they actually realize, like, wow, was that a smart decision? Was that a right decision? So it's very hard to talk to people my age, because you know, everybody want to loot. Like everybody wants to, you know, they want to get stuff, and like honestly, that's not the right way to go about things, in my opinion. So I would say try to do it in love, like what I was saying, like try to do it in love, like. And the thing that, and also we have to realize, like everybody's not going to receive what we got to say. So like we can do our part, but you know, that's when prayer comes in. That's when trusting God comes in. So I would just say, like, basically do everything in love, and like do your part and pray, trust God.
All right, Amon, that's excellent.
Did you have anything? I know you got some stuff written down. Is there anything that you had that you wanted to say right now?
My thing would be after we are done with this, after we're done with protesting. Okay, well,
yeah. We're not there where she's gonna go yet. So I got a couple things I got written down I want to address. Next is the cliche statements that we hear that I think a lot of people are tired of hearing. The cliche statement is, "Oh, we have a sin problem. That's why all this stuff is happening." Like, I think we all know that at this point. You know what I mean? So the next thing is, okay, after the sin problem, what's the solution to the sin problem that we are talking about? So I just want to open it up to the floor. After we acknowledge that we have a sin problem, what's the next move? Tommy.
Well, I would say, man, I think the church right now, we're very reactive to things. Like we react to whatever's, but we're not proactive. And yes, there's a sin problem, right? You know, there's a sin problem. But if we look at, and we talked about this the other day, if we look at the church and we look at our communities and we look what's going on in the world, right? The world is literally a reflection of the entire body of Christ right now as we know it. If you look at the division in the church, denominational barriers, in communities, you'll have communities where there's 20 or 30 churches and communities, and none of those churches fellowship with each other because they don't like the way that church worship. They don't like the way that church prays. They don't like that pastor. They wear jeans over there. They wear makeup. Like there's so many things that divides the church. But then the church wants to jump out and say the world has a sin problem. Yes, the world has a sin problem, but we also have a sin problem in the church. We have to learn how to love everybody. Every church deserves love and equally. I grew up Church of God in Christ, and growing up in Church of God in Christ, it was, if you weren't Church of God in Christ, you was sinner. You weren't saved for real. Every other church was sinners except Kojic. Then, as I got older, I'm visiting Baptist churches, and it's kind of the same thing. We don't mess with them Kojic people. Then I step into the non-denominational churches, and what they really are is they denominational. They just don't want to be like everybody else. So it's so much divide in the church, and we can't go out into the community and try to bring unity when we're divided in ourselves. So to answer your question about how do we handle the sin problem, we got to first deal with the division within the church. We can't preach unity and we're divided. We can't preach racism and talk about racism, and we have racism within our church. We have prejudices within our church. The black people don't want to go to the white church. The white church don't want to go. The fact we got
hey, hold on.
You know, these
you breaking up anyway.
We have to talk about.
Hey, that's right on. Hey, I got that down as a bullet point too, but I'm gonna let somebody else jump in there before I go to that next point I had. I seen Crystal make some facial expressions. I seen Archie with his arms. I seen some hands in a mod video. Like it's a lot. It's a lot of.
Right there.
I see you, Archie. I see you, Archie. I see a lot going on. So, Crystal, Archie, or somebody Deanna want to get in there and talk about that. Go right ahead.
Hey, Tommy. So that's exactly what I have been trying to talk about as well. You know, like I mentioned earlier, we're not just dealing with division between white people and black people. We're dealing with division within the black community. And I think it's in large part a part of the systematic racism, because we are constantly fed this notion of division. Everything is dividing. And again, because racism is a spirit and not a person, we're dealing with this enemy spirit that constantly wants to isolate us and divide us. Yeah. Unity is of God. Division is not of God. You know, confusion is of the enemy. God is not the author of confusion. So you think about these things and how our warring is done in the spirit. We're not fighting flesh and blood, but we're fighting spirits and principalities. So, you know, in a sober mindedness with regards to everything that's going on, we do have to take a step back. If this is a sin issue, what does the Bible say about sin? It says to lay down your gift, lay down your offering, and you go and you deal with that sin. If you have an art with your brother, you lay your offering down and you go deal with that. If you have sin, the Bible says to confess your sins one to another. We're not talking. So the underlying issue is dialogue. We have to talk. We have to be honest with ourselves. Black people have to be able to say, you know what? I've been prejudiced. I have proved the narrative correct. I have been the stereotype or the statistic. Black people do need to talk about black on black crime. I'm not saying that I am condoning that as a response to Black Lives Matter or to police brutality, because it's not a response. So hear me clear, anybody who's watching. If you come to me with, while I'm talking about George Floyd and all of these different things that are going on in the news where black faces are being slain and nothing's being done about it, don't say, well, what about Black Lives Matter? That's a totally separate issue and we're dealing with it. Can we do more? Absolutely. But we need to continue to talk about it. There needs to be accountability. We need to be able to go and say, you know, like, just as a church, we've gotten to the point, like Tommy said, so many people don't like different stuff that they decide, I'm gonna just start my own ministry. And so the problem really lies therein, because people don't want to get offended and they don't want to offend. And so it's like, if I know and I see you doing something wrong, I'm too scared to tell you because you might leave the church. And so what does that do? If I see that you're being prejudiced, or if I see that you're being racist, or if I see that you're looting and you're not supposed, I'm gonna be quiet, because if I offend you, then you gonna blow up and you gonna tell everybody and everybody else gonna want to leave too. We have to stop doing that. We have, as the church, failed to keep people accountable. And accountability does not mean judging. It does not mean condemning people. What it really looks like is grabbing somebody's hand, sharing the word with them in love. The Bible says to share, to judge in love. We are called as the people of God to judge one another in love. And that judgment doesn't mean turning your nose down, because Jesus constantly says, you looking at your brother and a log, the speck in his eye, you got a log in yours. You know, what that looks like is, exactly. What that looks like is, hey sis, hey bro, this is what the word says. I see that there's some stuff going on. Let's talk about it. Are you struggling with that? Man, I struggle with that too. I understand what you're going through. How can I help you? How can
Yes.
I pray for you? That's what that conviction looks like. That's what that support, that community looks like. And I think if we get back to that community aspect where we can actually be accountable to one another, then we can really grow and deal with that sin issue, because we won't be too afraid to expose ourselves. And that's really what's happening here in America today. Things are being uncovered and exposed that have been festering for a real long time.
Right.
Mhm. Generation.
Autry, Deanna, anything to add to that?
Man, I think the piece I want to add is coming up. I think that might be your next topic.
Okay. Right on.
Let me get that next.
Deanna, you got anything to add to that?
What I'll say to that, the sin is not a skin issue, it's a sin issue. That's a cop-out. I'm gonna just kind of say it straight. It's a cop-out. And normally it's from a person or from people who really don't mean any harm, but it's a way to kind of sidestep dealing with the actual issue, the realities of what's going on. That's a person who is working in privilege, who they don't have to necessarily think about the skin issue. They don't necessarily have to think about the injustices and the oppression that others might be feeling, which honestly, that's a sin in itself, because then that's not entering into the pain of another, right? So that's not showing love, which is the second greatest commandment, to our neighbor, right? So it's a cop-out essentially to really just say, well, it's a sin issue. Well, let me pose this to you. If you are, if I have a friend whose husband is beating her, and I just say that's a sin, well, that's a sin issue. No, we still gonna need to deal with that, Joe.
Right.
We still need to address the issue at hand. Yes, it's a sin issue at its core, because we are all born in sin and shaping in iniquity. Don't get it twisted. The church, yes, has its issues in terms of separation, in terms of like having barriers between each other, but don't get it twisted. If Corona has taught us anything, it's that the church is not a building. We are the church. We are the ones that actually have the Holy Spirit within us. We are the ones that are supposed to be setting the example. And so a lot of times when people say that it's a sin issue, that's sidestepping the actual issue and dealing with the reality of the situation. So what do you do with sin? The Bible says to lay aside every weight and what? The sin that does so easily beset you. We're supposed to handle it. We're supposed to deal with it. We're supposed to address it. And especially as a body, as believers, we should be the first ones to point it out. Not necessarily in a judgmental way or fashion, but in a way that brings redemption, in a way that brings restoration and restitution. And so it's, like I said, it's a cop-out statement from generally from a person of privilege who doesn't have to deal with the skin issue.
Am I anything you want to add before I move on?
Definitely what Ms. Warren said. It's a privilege. Like I can't even say nothing. They hit it on the dot. So
right on. I'm gonna read a comment because, like I said, I got to read them manually right now because Antoine says, "I respect peacefully protest, but violence sometimes needs to be used. There's no gray area. MLK assassinated Colin Kaepernick, unpatriotic. My best friend, girlfriend was tear gassed in Hammond yesterday with a peaceful protest. Cops are getting off, killing us with no repercussions. Business have insurance, but where's the insurance on the life of a man?" So that's a comment. I think that's just one of the many angry people that's out there. I don't think that we agree with the violence sometimes need to be used comment, because I don't think that's going to solve anything, in my opinion. I think we all can agree on that part, that violence.
Well, how do you address that? Because there are people who are at these protests, even that we as the church, once we do get it together and start to lead them, they're gonna flock to that, and that is their ideal, is that we need to be violent. I mean, it satisfies the flesh, but how do we deal with those people who I would like to call, I mean, I'm not calling Antoine, I'm not calling that person an agitator, but I'm just saying, how do we deal with agitators at a peaceful protest?
Autry, I see you got your hand up. Go ahead, bro.
Man, I'm sorry. I heard your question, sis. But real quick, just for our listeners, I wanted to make sure, real quick, if I can, pose the question: why isn't violence the answer? Because, for the person that just commented, he believes that violence is the answer. And this is the same belief for so many people that's on, the front lines of this. And really, honestly, I don't think that's the thought mind process of the majority of people. Honestly, I think that's the mind process of some and the few that's there. But really quickly, I just want to kind of pose the question and make sure that we make sure that people are aware why violence is not the answer, especially when you come in at it at a Christian standpoint. If somebody can answer that for me.
Oh,
anybody want to tackle that?
I'll just say, no, I mean, I don't necessarily have a super clear answer to that, but I will ask, I'll actually pose another question, and that would be, to what end? To what end will we be violent? Because honestly, violence begets more violence. To what end? Yes, you get your anger and frustration out. And honestly, I think something else that we need to address here is that there are a lot of people who are really frustrated, who are passionate, who are angry, right? And really want to honestly just let out their frustration, and have no real healthy way to direct that. There are a lot of mental health issues. Let's be real. There's some mental health issues, some unaddressed anger, some unaddressed other issues underlying. So then when there are a lot of things converging on protests, on events like that, where a lot of people have the opportunity to just express their frustration and their anger, whether it's directly related to what we're there for or not. So I would honestly answer that question with a question, even though it's not necessarily an answer, but to what end will we be violent, right? So what will that do?
And that's definitely the answer. It's not gonna solve anything in the end. I'm gonna read a couple of comments because I think we got a few good comments. Brittany Taylor says, can they say it's a sin issue and still address it at the same time? Why not both? And I think you can do that, but I've seen so many say it's a sin issue and then that's it. And leave it at that. That's the issue that we're talking about. But if they do both, Brittany, kudos to them. But I've seen so many where they just, you can't just do one. Right. Paul Harrelson said we need leadership locally and nationally. Jennifer Rucker says violence plus violence equal more lives lost. That's a great answer. That's not the answer that you want. Go ahead, Autry.
Bro, my whole mindset on this is that a lot of the people that saying they want, let's go violence, let's do this, let's blow and tear stuff up, a lot of them are the ones that's at home watching it on live. You see what I'm saying? And so it's like you want our young men, our young women to go out there and put themselves in harm's way just so you can go live your life like nothing happened. And I mean, I understand the anger. You see, like, I mean, because I felt it. You understand? Like, I understand why people are mad. I understand why people are angry. But my whole thing is, I mean, blowing up Arby's is not going to bring George Floyd back.
Exactly.
You see, I mean, it can, like my sister said, it'll feel good for a second. You oh man, I'm getting them back, but are you really?
Right. That's good. I'm gonna read a couple more. Oh, go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I feel like one thing that I've been sharing a lot recently in my posts is that you can be angry, yes, but still be excellent. And I feel like, a scripture that I cling to is that the Bible says to be angry, but sin not. And when I'm thinking about Jesus, a lot of times in general, the people at large think Jesus is like this cold word to be soft, to be, meek and mild, to be a punk or whatever. And so I don't claim to have the answer to this. But I also have to look at how Jesus was very strategic and he knew what to do, when to do it, right? So in one breath, Jesus came out of the temple seeing people making a mockery of kingdom because the temple represented his people, and he ran amok. He tossing tables, he whipping people and cussing people out, not in the way that we do it today, but he brood of vipers, all of this stuff, right? But then when it was his time to go and make a sacrifice on behalf of the temple, then Peter is like, you know what? He's slicing ears off. And Jesus is like, no, it's not the time for that. Let me go and heal this brother. And so it's like, in that mindset, I think that there is a time that violence happens. We can't acknowledge that the Bible does not employ violence, that God did not employ violence. God literally brought enemies into the hands of his called people and called them to subdue them. you know. But by the same token, I really believe it's a timing thing, and it's a strategy thing. And so we have to look at what the purpose is, right? The purpose in this particular situation, number one, we're dealing with the law. And the Bible talks about how we are to abide by the laws of the land. That's biblical. Okay. And as unjust as some of these laws are, particularly for people of color, Black people in the US, we have to do our due diligence to be obedient to God, which means being obedient to his word. And so when it comes to violence, if the Old Testament says an eye for an eye, but Jesus says, no, you forgive those who persecute you. You pray for those who, you know, who are oppressing you. You know, you have to balance those things. And as a Christian, it's hard. It's hard to understand when, because we have real feelings. And I think that just kind of goes again to kind of explore this idea of what Jesus was like, because he was a real human and he had real feelings. So I'm sure in that moment when he's just like, man, I'm coming out here and I'm doing this great work and people are disgracing my people, then he's running amok. But when it comes to the timing of it, where he's just like, okay, I know it's time for me to move forward. Don't disrupt the timing of things. This is not war time. This is sacrifice time. So I think in us getting more organized and understanding our strategy, we'll understand what time is for whatever. But I will say personally, as a pursuer of peace, we have to understand the repercussions of our actions. And so the people that are out there looting, coming up, decorating their houses because they feel like they can, that's not the answer. And you're making it worse. Hear me real good. You're making it worse because you are polluting the actual message that we're trying to get across, and you're proving the narrative. Just my opinion.
I'm gonna read a couple of comments before I move on, and I'm gonna address this comment that just came through too. Daryl Warren says an example is what Jesus said and did when he was being taken, and Peter began fighting and cut off the ear of an officer to answer that question. And I think that's a great example of Paul Harrison. Nothing will be accomplished with violence. I don't agree with violence. Felicia said, I don't agree with violence, but we need to understand their mindset and try to understand them. If we don't understand them, we can never change their mindset. Look, that's one thing I feel like I understand the mindset, but we still have to give the alternative and let them know that it's probably not the wisest thing to do. So it's okay to understand people, but still point them to another direction. So let's see. Jennifer Rucker says people are hurting and hurt people. That's when they don't know no better. That's what I would say. When all they know is hurt and how to, and that's their only response. That's all they're gonna do. She said even Jesus got peed that they made his temple a den of thieves. A lot of we addressed that already, and that was and I will say this because a lot of people use that example when it comes to a lot of things. And they don't always look at the other things that Jesus did peacefully. But I digress.
That's a good point. Just like when Crystal brought it up.
Yeah.
There's a time and place for it.
Right. Let's see. Sean Perry, being militant and violent is two different things. Okay. So I think Brittany Taylor says, so are y'all protesting every day or does this convo end next week and we go back to our regular? We're going to address that in a minute, Brittany. We definitely going to get to that. And Anthony Lott says, I'm down for protesting, but only in front of government buildings. Let's stay away from the hoods and businesses. And I think we all can agree that we don't agree with that statement as well. I appreciate my brother for tuning in, but you said protesting, but only in front of government buildings. Let's stay away from the hoods and the businesses. I don't.
Can I
go ahead.
I get what he's trying to say.
I get what he's saying too, because I guess he's saying like let's stay away from areas that would be affected negatively by the protests, so that there's no looting, there's no rioting that affects businesses and people's livelihoods. I get that, but at the same time, the purpose of a protest is to create awareness. Right. It's create awareness so that voices are heard. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't go to government buildings every day. I don't go to them every day. So I see the benefit of not going to specifically a government building. I see the benefit of going to them. I just wouldn't be exclusive to
Right.
just government buildings. I get that.
I think it should be both. And then for whatever reason, I substitute his protesting for rioting and looting for whatever reason in my own mind. But my mind went strictly to rioting and looting. That's why I said, I disagree with that. But protesting, I think it should be in all areas. If you're gonna protest, in my opinion, I think you can protest anywhere. I want to move on though to a lot of people. She wanted to address it. Autry said he's ready to address it, and Brittany said, really. And the question is, what's next? What's next after the protest? Because we seen, and I talked to my brother Tommy about this as well. The one thing that I'm an advocate of, one thing that I don't like is when people do stuff and don't have a plan, because I think that's where the enemy can come in and distort everything.
We just lose our
Yeah.
And we lose our steam. It died down, and then that's it. So to first of all address Brittany's question, is this it? I would say no. I've talked to Tommy about a few things, and I would love to connect with everybody to find out some strategic ways to make some real effective change. I just want to open the floor up. Ahmad, man, I want to come to you first, man, because what's next in your eyes as the youngest guy on here? What's next for you? You just graduated and you going through all of this. What's next for you?
Right now, it's pretty tough to say with everything going on, because as you know, I'm an actor, and then first of all, Corona stopped everything, so stopped production for everything. But I've been auditioning from home, and with this going on, everything's just stuff is happening everywhere. So right now, I would say what's next for me.
Hold on. Before you answer that, I think what the people want to know as far as protests go, if people are out protesting, what should be the next move, and what's the next move for you? And I don't know if you was protesting or not, but what should be the next move in your opinion?
Like my pop saying over here, strategy. We should like basically what everybody was saying earlier. We should who said that? Mr. Boom, about coming together and having meetings and stuff like that. I feel like that should happen. So we should have strategy so we can plan out stuff, and we can try to stop, when people coming out lashing out, let's riot, let's loot and stuff like that. So I would say definitely get a strategy in place and make sure it's effectively. So
I want to say something, because I had a dialogue with a young sister on Facebook who thought because she was only one person that she said, I'm only one person, I can't do anything. And I said, that's wrong. All you have to do is connect with some like-minded individuals and plan and strategize and go out and execute. Autry, what's next after the protest?
Well, brother, I think that first off, I thought the next topic is going to be something different. I'll start off there. But I will address it. I thought it was going to be something totally different.
What did you think? What did you think?
Well, I thought it was going to be about unity in the church and the body of Christ, because we briefly spoke about kind of like white
evangelism. That's the next thing.
Briefly.
That would be
so.
Yeah.
You know what?
Okay.
That was supposed to be the next topic, but I think the comments took me into the what's next, because everybody was looking for that.
I got you. I can wait.
But that's an important topic to talk about, though. So we definitely gonna come back to that. But Tommy, what's next, brother? What should be next?
So this is what should be next. Earlier I made a comment about being reactive versus proactive. After this, I think that we should make normalize meeting on a regular. Like imagine a world where if there's a group of people that's regularly meeting and regularly strategize, okay, what's going on in our community? What are the topics? What are the things we need to focus on? And let's say something outbreak, right? There's some situation outbreak. We know exactly who to go to because they've been coming together and strategize. Say, hey, listen, this is going on. This is just happening. We need to protest. what y'all got, what do y'all have in place?
Yeah.
Like, we need to normalize coming together on a regular, not just when things happen. When everything is going good, when everything is copacetic, we still should be meeting, having these conversations. What can we prevent from happening? Not what can we do to stop what's happening already? What can we prevent from happening? How can we do things in the community to help push, positivity and peace and everything like that? So meeting on a regular, and not just meeting that, like, I've been to meetings where like the conversation is absolutely nothing, but strategic meetings, okay? Conversations with a plan, with a focus, okay? Having a time limit on that meeting, because people would talk forever. Like, really having a plan to get together.
Hey, and I just want to say this, and I'm gonna let you get in. It's not even a reason anymore that you can't meet. All these, because of this pandemic, all these different platforms, streaming services, you don't even have to meet in person no more.
Right.
Like, it's no excuse not to meet up and discuss real issues. Yeah. So go ahead, Tia. What did you have?
Well, the only thing I was going to say is, has anyone heard from the local NAACP chapter? Did you all know we had a local NAACP chapter? Does anyone have any relationship with, any knowledge of?
We do. Go ahead, Chris.
So I do have a relationship with the NAACP chapter in Naperville. I've been very Naperville. So locally, Northwest Indiana, I do not, unfortunately. And I think that part is definitely something that we need to address, because it's not hard to go on Facebook, to go on Instagram and look up a hashtag or look up an area and see who's been posting about a certain topic within your area. I think that groups like that need to be proactive as well, because it used to be a huge thing and it's still very prevalent, but what are they doing now in the new age way of how information is traveling? So us reaching out, but then them reaching out to us too, because I personally don't even know, outside of my relationship with a different Dr. Boone out in Naperville, I'm not 100% sure what the NAACP is doing about social issues like this right now.
Yeah, well, there is a chapter in Gary, but I just want to know.
Ahmad, you had your hand up?
Yeah, not locally, but my cousin is the president on her campus at Drake University in Iowa. So she's from here. And she's from Gary. So yeah, so, that's not locally.
Right.
For me,
so I think that's another thing that we can address, that, and I'm gonna get to you in 1 second, Tommy. I think we all need to use whatever resources we have to really make some change. I feel like we all got somebody somewhere, we know somebody somewhere that we can connect with and get the movement started. Go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah. Now I'll say in my community, and I'm a very humble dude, and like I too have been that person that, how, like, we see something that we don't see working well, and we complain about it. I've been that person, and in my city, in our program or whatever that we have in place, I have been very critical of them, but I haven't been proactive in trying to, come alongside them, and that's something that I'm learning now, that like I can't sit back and complain about stuff that ain't working if I'm not doing nothing myself. So, and what that comes to, like I said, man, I'm starting to see now, like, okay, all right, okay, there's a bunch of old heads on there, ain't really no young people. How about I be the first young person, Yeah. So it's just a matter of like really like pursuing it and not kind of, like I said, man, and I'm pretty sure everybody's been guilty of it at some point, of just like, criticizing something. But we can affect it now, and I'm seeing that now, that we have the ability to affect the changes that we want to see. We have the ability to change that, and we just got to be proactive in that. And that's my next step of plan, really getting involved with that.
Autry, go ahead. I'm sorry, Autry. Then I'm gonna go back to you, Chris. I've seen Autry. Go ahead.
Yeah, brother. So I think as far as what to do next, these meetings are crucial. They are a crucial next step. These meetings, so that these protests, whatever the next steps are going to be, are led by the church. more specifically. But as far as what we're doing in those meetings and what we're looking for, what we're talking about more specifically is what is when we protest, like what are we protesting for? Like what do we want to see when we protest? You see what I'm saying? I think a lot of times what we're missing is like, what's the end goal of it? Like we can march and have signs, and that's good. Awareness is good, but what's the end game? And like I've heard a lot about economically, like hit them where it hurts in the pockets and stuff, and that has its holes, just simply because like because we're so integrated now in the community. If we hitting major companies' pockets, we hitting our own pockets. And so even as far as, so it's, I heard at another platform about maybe changing laws to where individuals who, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so I heard on a different platform, we're changing laws where individuals, the police officers who have, done these heinous crimes, like they don't receive their pension, or they're fired with, certain levels of things that goes against them. But I think these are the type of things when we do meet needs to be addressed, and so that we know what we're going to protest for specifically.
Crystal, go ahead.
So I'm in agreement with definitely, there being meetings, strategizing meetings, organized meetings that do have a time limit because it forces you to actually talk instead of just sit there and ramble. Another thing that I've been trying to do, so I'm trying to use my platform as well. I think that we have a different set of rules that we're kind of playing by than our, parents and grandparents did as far as social media, technology, all of those things. So I'm an actor as well. I've been doing a lot of self-tapes at home, and I've been thinking about ways that I can create content that will continue to bring positive awareness to whatever is going on. And in addition to that, like I said, I started doing the Race Bridge, which is basically, I'm calling it an experiment right now, but it's a podcast that will have video as well, that I'm having these conversations, these candid conversations with white people who want to be allies with us and just discussing. And it's not like I'm just sitting a white person in a hot seat and just grilling them about, why y'all hate us. It's not like that, but it's this open dialogue where I'm asking them if they've experienced prejudice, what they've been taught about racism, what we can do to work together, misconceptions about each race, different things like that. And I feel like those type of conversations are going to have a drastic impact because it breaks down this false notion that we already know about each other. And so what I've learned so far, I've done 6 interviews so far, and what I have learned from each white person has been something so drastically different. Each person comes from a different background. One common denominator is that a lot of white people who are humble enough to express about their privilege is that they didn't realize it was a thing until they had to step back and say, oh my gosh, I do have privilege. Because I've literally asked them, I was like, do you worry for 1 second at all when your husband or your child leaves the door, and do you think, oh, they're going to get shot maybe? And they're all like, no, that's not even a question that I consider, because I've never had to consider that in my own self. And so these conversations have kind of given me this idea, what would it look like? Black people on a regular basis, we're raised with the talk. At one point or another, whether you are a girl or a boy, your parents sit you down and have the talk. And so I've been asking my guests, what would it look like if white people would have a talk with their children and educate them about what racism is, educate them about how to interact with Black people, letting them know that there are Black people that they know that are not harmful, that are peaceful, that are professional, that are educated, that are great people. I think that's a big part of what comes next too, because what our ancestors did versus what we're doing now, social media makes things a lot wider. And I think we have a real opportunity to show that there are so many more allies than there ever has been before, from different walks of life. We've got people over in Berlin, in London, in Toronto, marching alongside us. They're dealing with it as hurt as we are. And it's people that I've connected with through social media. And I think that if we include that and we have this dialogue, we educate those people on how to be allies. That has to be a big part of the next move, because I think we have seen over the last few hundred years, this is not something that we can simply do on our own. We have to have prayer. Right. We have to have unity among our community. And then we have to have allies.
Yeah. Let me ask a question. Tierra, you got a question? Go ahead and ask it.
I do have a question. When was the last time you heard a child say when they grow up they want to be a police officer? Have we lost the whole next generation of children that we raise, that we're responsible for, that would empathize with the community because they look like us? Have we lost that generation that would like to be police officers? Ahmad?
I think so, because, you know, especially as a young black male or as black males, like, you know, everything is literally spontaneous when it comes to like what to do, like if you stopped, or like what to do in the presence of a police officer. Because now, like, you were taught to, you know, keep your hands up, keep your hand visible. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. But we still getting killed for that. So, you know, what'd you say?
Do you think any, like, you or any of your friends would ever like to be a police officer to change things, or the stigma just totally wipe that out of your head?
Not gonna lie, the stigma, it definitely wiped it out of my head. And as far as my peers, yeah.
Them too?
Yeah.
Wow. Deanna, I haven't heard from you. I feel like if I haven't heard from you in such a long time, like I just got to call on you, even if you ain't said nothing. Like, but go ahead.
So I want to address the earlier question, which is what's next. I think it came from the question Brittany asked about, you know, so is this going to end today and then we back to our regular lives after we finish protesting? The answer to that is this should be a part of our lives, because it's a part of the world. This is something that we have to deal with on a regular basis. I'm not gonna, you know, sit here and act like I've been woke my whole life. I haven't. I think what happens a lot of times is people wait for the next big thing to happen, or aren't really sure what to do, because it's so many instances of events happening to Black people. And it's like, well, if I protest for this, then I mean I gotta protest for the next thing, and then the next thing, and the next thing. And I think what happens is people get paralyzed by not knowing what to do, not knowing what to do next. And so they just end up not doing anything, or they end up picking a topic or something that is like neutral for everybody, because it seems like, you know, like they'll pick something like abortion to have like you know, a protest about, because that affects everybody. That's something that's, you know, that's worth my time. But the thing is, all of this is worth our time. My challenge for other people is to not let that paralyze you, not to let the fact that there's so many instances, so many things to fight for, to protest against, paralyze you. Start somewhere. That's what I would say. Start somewhere. The what's next would be to start somewhere and do something. I kind of want to co-sign what Crystal said about educating. And just to add a little bit to that, educating not necessarily just how to entreat other people of different races or backgrounds, but also educating on literally systemic racism as a whole, like exactly what it is. I was in another group, another Facebook group with like thousands of people in it. And the topic of what's been happening came up. And of course, there are a lot of our melanin deficient brothers and sisters in this group. And some of them, like a lot of them, had issue with people posting Black Lives Matter or posting something about what's going on now. They had an issue with that. And I'm like, what are y'all not saying? I was ignorant to the fact that people didn't really understand what racism was. There's still a lot of people, believe it or not, who don't believe that systemic racism exists. They believe that it's an individual thing, yes, but they don't believe that there are systems in place that are upholding the system of oppression. Yeah. They don't necessarily believe that exists. So I think to kind of piggyback on my sister Crystal, what she said was to actually educate. So consistently educate. So it's not a one-time thing. Yes, we protest. This is an event, right? But it should be an ongoing thing. Like I said, I ain't been woke my whole life. I literally, and part of that is systematic, because there are certain things that we weren't taught, like just in schools, public school system, things like that they didn't tell us. A lot of us didn't know about Black Wall Street until later on. A lot of us didn't know about certain things that happened in
Right.
this country's history until adulthood.
Right.
And so I'm not gonna I'm new to this, to be honest with you. So I would encourage others to start somewhere. Just start somewhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you might not be at the protest stage yet. You might not be at the we rallying yet.
Yeah.
You might not be at that stage. You might just still be at the I just want to learn stage.
Yeah.
But be open to learning. If you don't know, don't speak on it.
That's good. I want to say this. Talking about, I think y'all was saying Tommy was talking about things that he wants to accomplish, and I think my next thing is what I want to do that I'm real passionate about is I want to talk to police officers, but in specific white police officers, because for whatever reason I don't believe they are valuing our lives, and so sometimes you have to show somebody exactly who you are for them to get an aha moment. Like, oh, forget everything that I heard. I sat down and had a conversation with this brother or sister, and now my mindset has changed. It's not guaranteed that it will change, but I think the fact that if we can sit down and actually have a conversation with them, I think a lot of things can change, because I think they have preconceived notions about us. And I think if we have a conversation with them, some red flags might be raised in front of other people when they speak. I think you can pick up things, something's not right with him. And that's something that probably can look into. And you want to start a dialogue. So my thing is talking to police officers, specifically white ones.
Okay, but
If I could
what he's saying
just real quick. Oh, sorry.
No,
it's okay.
Go
I just want to say, just setting up where we want to bring the police into the community and have them to talk to our young men, so they don't just see them as just black boys. Like, this young man has a story, he has a family. So we want to set up where maybe they play basketball together, have a luncheon, something like that, where there is a dialogue set up where because they are police in our community. We are a community. We are a people. We need to have some type of relationship, not just an oppressor-oppressed relationship, not just a watcher-watch relationship. That's it.
Go ahead, Crystal. That's good, though. That's real good.
I just wanted to share, just to talk about what Deanna was saying as far as education is concerned and systematic racism. I have never said those two words so much in my entire life than I have in the last 3 weeks. It's really insane. But I wanted to mention, in case anyone is unaware, there's a group on Facebook that you can tag if you need an ally to jump in. It's called White Nonsense Roundup. And what they do, it is a group. They are organized. We need to get like these people, okay? They are organized. It is a group, volunteer-based, all across the world. And you can tag them if you get into some type of a social media war where people are just kind of going at it and they just not getting it. I tagged them for the first time today, and this guy named Kyle from New York inboxed me. He's like, hey, I can't see the message. Show it to me, tag me in it, and I'll go at it. And he broke down something that I could not apparently get like me. And the thing about these people that are volunteers for White Nonsense Roundup, they are painfully aware of systematic racism. They are painfully aware of their privilege, and they are allies that can be trusted to advocate on our behalf, to explain things that other people might not get coming from our Black mouths. So that's just another resource that I wanted to throw out there.
And I'm sharing that.
Go ahead, Deanna, and then I'm gonna move on real quick.
First of all, that's amazing. I love that.
What was they at when people were coming at me on Instagram? All right,
listen. Okay, so I got two things. All right, so one, I think I know Al and maybe Crystal, I can't remember who said it, but in terms of talking to police officers and getting them to be somewhat more infiltrated socially in the community, I think a lot what we're addressing there is implicit bias. And that's something that I think that it needs to be taught. It needs to be talked about in law enforcement a lot more. It needs to be a class. It needs to be something that they are actually trained in and learning about their own implicit bias, and not even just white police officers. Honestly, a lot of people everybody has implicit biases, but when you have the power to wield over another person, there should be some sense of training when you're dealing with that. The other thing is the other part of what's next, vote.
Yeah,
That's for me, that's the other part. Vote, actually get involved with honest, and I'm a novice as well. Like I said, I ain't been woke my whole life. So I'm still learning things. I'm still learning certain parts of legislation, still learning about the voting process, things like that. But like I said, start somewhere.
Yeah.
Start somewhere.
And I want to say this, when we was talking about how to get involved and what to do, Deanna and Autry, y'all know we've been having that Bible study with Justin talking about the gifts. I think that's an easy way to start somewhere. Find out what you're good at and use your gift in whatever meetings that you are being a part of. And then that way it won't even feel like too much work, so to sense, but you'll be using your gift. You'll be happy about it. But moving on, I want to talk about the churches coming together. And Autry, why? First of all, why is it that, I know why, but I just want to hear from you. Why is it that churches don't come together more?
Okay, I still don't think we're there yet. So why aren't churches coming together?
That wasn't it.
Oh, was that it?
That's the one you said, ain't it?
Okay, it could be it. It could be it. So we're talking about not necessarily denominationally, not necessarily just different churches on the same block. We're talking about racially, white churches, black churches, Hispanic churches, things of this sort. Man, why aren't we coming together, man? That's a great question. That's something that I posted. I posted about a couple days ago, and in essence, I don't remember it verbatim, but what I was saying is at the time. So I'll say this, and honestly, I was kind of convicted even after I posted it, because I wanted to make sure people understood what I was saying, that it wasn't coming from a place of me trying to cause contention or me trying to cause a separation in the body, but saying that at the place that I was, I had yet to see a large number of white evangelicals speaking out on, what we were facing or what we're facing. Thanks. And so, but after a while, I did begin to see it. I began to share it even as I saw it, and then even as I began to keep clicking throughout Facebook, I saw actually not just white, saw that it wasn't just white evangelicals that were silenced, but there was actually some black evangelicals that was silent as well. There was a young brother who actually posted, it hurt me to my core, man. This brother said he was called. He wasn't called to protest. He said he was called to preach. Man, it hurt me. So, yeah, right. You ain't see that?
I saw that.
It hurt me to my core, man. But the truth is, you said, who is he? I don't know his name. I unfriended him, but I don't remember his name. I'm like, all right, you do your thing. But the sad fact, man, is that there are so many people, and please, you all, please don't take me the wrong way. Like when God created us, He created us as mankind. Like I see, irrelevant of race, skin tone, things of the sort. I see everyone as a brother in the body of Christ. So I don't take it as that. I got mad love for my white brethren.
Right.
But this fact still stands. Because we're one whole body, if one part of the body is afflicted, then it is a responsibility for the rest of the body to respond. And the true fact of the matter is that, in this time, just as Sister Deanna was saying, there's a lot of people in other parts of the body who are not responding because they choose not to respond, whether they don't understand or whatever the case may be.
Tommy, man, jump in on that, man.
I'm back. Can you count? Because my internet was kind of funky, so I kind of missed it.
I think you got the Teddy Riley going on, but we're gonna see if we can hold on to you.
Real quick, fill me in. What just transpired?
We talking about why churches don't come together, and he specifically talked about white churches and black churches, I believe, right, Autry?
Pretty much.
Well,
okay.
All right. So I've had the privilege to not only go to a black church and go to a white church, but actually be like a functioning leader in each church. So I was a functioning leader in the black church. I was a functioning leader in the white church, which I hate saying it because it's so stupid. But anyways, I think one of the divides in between the black and white, a lot of times you have preachers who have experienced racism, but never dealt with like getting healed from that pain of racism. So they continue to preach, and they have this mindset of the love of Christ, but they still have the man complex, like the white man, the white man, that or whatever. And in the white churches, one of the reasons why they don't connect is because they just don't connect with the community, and sometimes they don't see the need of, especially when you have churches who are like, if they're flourishing, okay, why do we need to go over here? We're good. We're evidently God is with us. And I think
wow, that
mindset is really what's keeping people divided. And a lot of times when we have these indifferences between the different cultures of the church, what it all boils down to is a conversation. The reality is this: in a Black community, you're going to have a majority Black church, right?
Right.
In a white community, you're going to have a majority white church. It's not racist. It's just by proximity. We have a lot of white people in this community, so a lot of white people go to this church. We have a lot of Black people in this community. A lot of Black people go to this church. The reality is, if I grow up in a community where I see nothing but Black people, I'm a Black person. I see nothing but Black people my entire life. I only interact with Black people my entire life. And the only time I interact or see white people in my life is either police officers or I see them on TV as lawyers locking up Black people. I'm going to have a perception of what a white person is, right? So my viewpoint of white people will always be that. Same situation with Black people. If I'm only surrounded by white people, right? I'm a white person. I don't interact with white people. I don't interact with Black people. The only interaction that I have with Black people is what I see on TV. I'm going to have this perception of what a Black person is. So when we enter these situations where where churches come together, Black church has a perception of what the white church is. They like to turn the lights down. They like to sing that slow music. They dry. They ain't got the Holy Ghost. Holy Ghost is speaking in tongues. In the white church, their perception is the Black people are wild. They jump and shout. They're it's spooky or whatever. So we have, like I said, man, we can talk about racism and division in the world, but until we deal with it in the church, is really pointless for the church to try to tackle that. So we have to find a way. Like, I don't know the answer to like bringing these churches together outside of conversation and actually spending time together.
Let me add this, because I think I want to add this to the equation. I want to, in a sense, that Black churches, going to other Black churches to join together. And so I think all around, I think it's some egos involved as well.
Oh, definitely ego.
And I think that's one of the biggest problems that we have is dealing with the egos. That all of that. Deanna,
she had her hand up.
Yeah. Go ahead, Deanna.
Did I?
Oh, maybe not.
I mean, I can speak to it though. The question was why churches not coming together? That was a question? Are you talking specifically about Black and white churches or just churches in general?
Audrey said Black and white churches. I want to address all of it, Black and whites and Black and Blacks.
Okay. I think go ahead.
I would say this. I've seen you reach out to other youth groups to, try to join forces and do things together. But why is it other people aren't doing the same?
I think it has a lot to do with ego. It also has a lot to do with what do you call that? Territorialism. I think a lot of it has to do with territorialism. Who gonna lead? Because there's got to be a leader. And a lot of times, I'm gonna say this. A lot of times, historically, there is. I'm not even gonna lie. There's PTSD in the Black church.
Yeah.
Because of what the history of the Black church, it formed because of segregation. When you understand the history of the Black church, it was necessary. It was necessary because I forgot the two gentlemen's names, but they literally had to walk out of service because they were not allowed to worship with the other parishioners. So they started their own They started their own church, and that was the beginning of the Black. It was birthed out of pain. But what happened was there became a rich cultural history of the Black church in the way that we worship, in the way that we preach, the way that we engage others, the way that we fellowship, the call and response. There are so many rich textures in the Black church that it's beautiful. And not to take anything away from the white church, but I think that there is some, like Tommy said, there's some PTSD, man. Like I think a lot of leaders, and honestly, it's not PTSD for the wrong reasons, to be honest, because when you really think about it, I mean, how many majority culture churches are really speaking out? Now, there's a lot more now than there has been, but I mean, you kind of get re-traumatized when you see all of these other white evangelical pastors who begin to shun any kind of social justice movement, and so it becomes re-traumatizing. So it's almost like it's easier just to stay separated. Now, when it comes to other churches that are maybe the same culture or whatever, and let me say this: all churches have their own culture, even if they are of the same denomination, of the same race. Every single church has its own fingerprint and its own culture. You see that when you visit another church. How many times have we walked into another church and we like, oh, this is where the entrance is? You get like it throws you off because you like, okay, well, everybody's gonna be looking at. So every church has its own culture. So it's also like a personal church thing. But I think there's some territorialism involved in that. It's who gonna lead us, and I think historically, because Black churches have always been looked down upon from white churches as being less educated or being less authoritative when it comes to scripture or when it comes to evangelism or when it comes to honestly anything. There's a lot of times with Black clergy, there's this idea of the white gaze, like this idea of white people seeing us. So we can't act this kind of way. We can't do what we normally do because white people see us, they're gonna think we ignorant. Right. But the thing is, if that's part of your culture, that's just what you do. And so I think a lot of people don't come together because we're afraid to have to conform to what the majority deems as a standard, because historically we've had to.
Can I speak on this part real quick?
Hold on real quick. I'm gonna read this comment. I'm gonna get to Crystal and then Tommy, and then we're gonna jump to the last thing, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Stephen Piggy says they are scared that their members will leave to go somewhere else. So I believe that's true as well. That's something else to look at. Crystal, go ahead, and then Tommy.
So unfortunately, I missed most of what Tommy said because for whatever reason, I couldn't hear him here. So I had to go to Facebook to hear the rest of it. Okay. I feel it's important for me to call out that there are some leaders, especially some white leaders, that are talking about this in their congregation. Specifically, my pastor, Sam Hamstra, him and his wife Taylor, they have a biracial son. So they are white people who pastor a multicultural church and have a biracial son, and they have a unique position right now, considering everything that's going on, and in light of some of the protesting and some of the violence that's been going on in Hammond, particularly. And so I think that them, and then Greg Howes over at Cornerstone, he's made some mentions of it. Like it is being talked about, it is being addressed. One thing that I have talked to a few of my peers that are in worship leader positions when they've been talking to their pastors and their leaders within their congregations. There are a lot of people who are seemingly silent right now, but they're really trying to figure out what to say. And I think it really goes back to what has already been said and what Deanna was just talking about with PTSD. People are afraid to say anything because they don't want to trigger someone from doing something else. They don't want to turn people away, because we have to be honest with ourselves. Let's go back to what we talked about earlier about being honest and having that dialogue and really looking at ourselves, that humility where we say, okay, a pastor brings up one thing and then all of a sudden we got flashbacks to church hurt from 20 years ago and we packing our bags and hopping over to the next ministry, and oh, well, they didn't like my shoes, so now I'm going over here. And so we have to really, I told this to a friend of mine that I think I mentioned earlier. She has she's a white girl who has a Black girl in her custody. And so she's raised this girl as her daughter. And something that I told her, because she reached out to me to try to figure out, like, okay, how can I relate to her? She's going through a lot in this time. And I told her, I was like, you know, number one, you have to sit in it. This is not something that you can fix. And I think this has been said by a lot of us on this particular call, but we get this misconception in our minds that there is some type of answer that we can come to right now today and say, okay, we're at the church, we're going to fix it, throw some Jesus on it, there's the stamp, we all good. That's not how this works. Something like this that has built up for over 400 years. All of this oppression, all of this systematic racism that went from slavery to mass incarceration, all of these different things. We have to understand that it's uncomfortable and it's going to be uncomfortable. There is nothing comforting about this. There was nothing comforting about Jesus knowing that he was going to go to the cross. From the time that he was young to the time that he started his ministry, he knew that was the end game. And there was nothing comfortable for him to be sweating blood in the Garden of Gethsemane. It was uncomfortable for him. And it's not like he just all of a sudden realized at the garden, oh man, I'm gonna have to go to the cross. He knew that from the beginning, because in the beginning, God was with him. He was the word. Like, he knew this was the plan. And so in the same aspect, I'm sorry, y'all, I feel like I'm preaching.
Go ahead.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
In the same aspect, though, like, we have to get out of our minds that this is gonna be, that there's an easy way to do this. Some people are going to be offended. Let them be offended, because racism is offensive. Prejudice is offensive, and we have to sit in that thing. We have to sit in that thing. We have to let people be uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to look at yourself and realize, I've been privileged my whole life. I haven't considered this whole group of people that have been oppressed by people who look like me. Sit in that thing. It's uncomfortable. And we as Black people have to sit in the uncomfortable accountability of us not dealing with our issues and just covering it up and hopping from church to church to church, or from guy to guy to guy, or from girl to girl to girl, or whatever it is that we've been doing.
Girl, I'm about to stand up. You better come on.
Hey.
We gotta sit in there.
You better preach.
Come on.
Right. Tommy, go ahead and say I would let you go all day, but we've been going, but we're gonna wrap it up, man. Go ahead, Tommy.
Very brief. Something Deanna said that's very important. I want to encourage everybody out there that's watching this, and even y'all that's on here, to go read this book called Many Colors. It's by this guy named Song Chong Ra, The Cultural Intelligence in a Changing Church. I read that book back in 2017, and it changed my perspective of the church as a whole. Deanna was saying something about the white gaze and how a lot of times we not necessarily shame of our culture, but we don't want to appear as foolish or anything like that. So we, but the reality is this: in the body of Christ, everybody was created purposely. The way that they worship, how they look, everything was purposely created. In this book, it talks about when the Americans first came to the Americas, and they changed the look of the Native Americans and told them, you guys need to look like this, because that's what their culture looked like. And it stripped the Native Americans who became Christians of their culture. And a lot of times we step into these environments thinking that we have to change our culture. The Black church, we got the Black church now, they want to sing the Hillsong songs and everything like that. No, ain't nothing wrong with it. Do your thing, but don't think you have to do that to we don't have to adapt other cultures to fit in or to be like, this is what the church is now. Every church specifically has a sound. Every church specifically has a culture. Like you said, I don't care if you go to 3 different Black churches, each one of those Black churches are going to have a different culture. And we have to understand culture from that aspect, that we are different. And that's okay. I don't have to be like you. You don't have to be like me. We just have to understand that, and we have to honor the culture of the house. We have to honor, if I go to a church right now, right, and I want to go to an old school Kojic Pentecostal church, I can't go in there and try to say, hey man, y'all need to sing more songs like this. No, that's their church. I'm gonna honor what they do. If they want me to sing what they sing, and I'm gonna sing what they're singing. So, we just have to understand culture from that aspect.
That's good. Hey, last thing Hold on. Oh man, I hate to have to cut it off, but we do got to cut it off. I wanted to talk about supporting Black businesses and the Black dollar, because I believe money is power, and I think if we have more income behind some of the movements, I believe we can get more done. Like I was talking to my wife, I said PETA can go and make stuff happen because they got dog lovers that support them and they got money behind them. I was asking Crystal's sister about all the Black businesses, because if I knew about a Black bank close to me right now, I would switch everything right now and put it there. And we also talked about the Black businesses and the excellence that comes with that. We're not just about to be supporting anything, but it has to be excellence behind it. I just want to talk about, I think that we need funds behind different movements as well. This is the last thing we're gonna touch on. Sorry, Deanna, that I feel so bad. Do you still got it on your mind right now?
I mean, I do, but you good. You good.
Go ahead. Come on, bring it. I can't let it go. Come on with it.
All right, so I'm just gonna say this, because I love what Crystal said about what Jesus did when he came down. Like, when you really think about it, if we are in the body of Christ, we are supposed to represent Christ. How are we just still walking in comfort? We've essentially made comfort our functional God. That's what's happened really for a lot of us. And the best example of walking in discomfort is Jesus, because he stepped outside of privilege. He was in privilege.
Oh,
he stepped outside of privilege.
Whoa!
And entered into he entered into pain. He entered into suffering. He entered into time willingly. Wow. He entered into all of that, and he put on our sin suit, right? So he exited privilege to enter into our suffering for us. And so how are we gonna sit here, right? I get it, everybody's not at the same place, but how are we gonna sit here and honestly sit in comfort? We have to. It's gonna be uncomfortable. Why? Because truth is uncomfortable. Truth is uncomfortable. The gospel is uncomfortable because it is truth. That's when Jesus came. He said, I'm not here for just peace. He is the Prince of Peace, but he's like, look, I came to separate y'all because the truth will separate. All right, that's it.
Hey, that made me a little bit uncomfortable myself. Like I've been too comfortable. Like it did something to me. I want somebody to hashtag that. I want to talk about the Black dollar, but I think we can do it another time. I just appreciate each and every one of y'all for coming on and doing this. I'm gonna go around the board. Last words to anybody who's watching or who's going to see this. What's the last thing you want to say to them? Ahmad, you go first. I haven't heard from you in a minute, brother.
Okay. The last thing I would say to the people that's watching is think. Because like how we talked about earlier, a lot of people may go off of feelings, and it might be a small feeling or a small thought might be a lifelong or a lifetime thing. So I was think.
That's good. Thank you, brother. Let's go, Crystal.
I'm gonna continue to repeat what I've been saying. Be angry, yes, but be excellent. Always remain excellent. Don't prove the narrative. Be excellent.
That's good. Autry, brother.
Man, bro. At this moment, what I'm thinking is through Christ, finding creative ways to promote change in places that we live.
Okay. Deanna?
Give a voice to the voiceless. That's what Psalm, what is that? Proverbs 31 says, to give a voice to those who have none. Start somewhere. Wherever you are, start somewhere.
That's good. Good. Tommy?
Educate yourself. Diversify yourself. Don't look for diversity. Bring it to you. Reach out to people that don't look like you, that don't go to the same church as you, that don't talk or don't sound like you. Diversify yourself. Experience the world. Don't just go off what people telling you. Research it yourself. Search it out. Educate yourself. And one more thing to piggyback on what Ahmad said. Really think. Okay, emotions are a good indicator. They're not a good navigator. Okay,
come on.
Don't let your emotions lead you. I got that from my first lady, so I got to give her I said first. I got that from my church, so I got to give her props. But emotions are a good indicator. They're not a good navigator. Okay.
That's good. That's good.
But don't let them control you.
Last words, wife.
Just to organize. That's it. We just need to network. We need to come together. We need to lead.
There it is.
And we need to have more talks like this where more people can see, because a lot of people have watched this live and they are taking away a lot. We have given out a lot of golden nuggets just in this conversation, just in this. So think if we came together in a room, and just came together with some ideas. That's it. That's all.
Go ahead.
I just want to add on to that, to organize. Me and a friend of mine, I was so frustrated with like not seeing too many churches talk about what's going on, or at least organizing protests. Me and a friend of mine are like trying to figure out ways that we could, as a body, like as Christians, do something. So if anybody has any ideas, if anybody has any events or any kind of direction or any kind of guidance or anything like that, please hit me up. Please hit me up.
I would say everybody put whatever they got going on in the comments after the show. I know me and Tommy been talking about some things, but let's put everything in the comments and maybe we can link up. But my thing is strategize and plan.
I think I'm gonna join my local NAACP.
Yeah, she have been talking about that.
I'm gonna try and see what happens.
Mine is strategize and plan. We got people talking about when's the next one. This was an impromptu. This was short notice. I appreciate every last one of y'all for answering the call at such a short notice. I don't know when the next one is. It wasn't planned. It wasn't planned a month ago. This was. I felt like it was a need. It was a call, and I wanted to do it. And I appreciate all of y'all for answering the call. Will it be a next one? I don't know. Always tune into the Allen Pastor Show every Tuesday to find out what's going on. Maybe, I don't know. But I appreciate y'all. We are gone. And thank you.
Y'all stay safe. Love, love, love. Peace.
And hair grease.